Devil's joint, New Jersey Devils. Devil's joint.
Welcome to the Devil's Joint. Today I have a very special guest, Don LaGreca. Thanks for joining me today, Don LaGreca.
My pleasure, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Looking forward to the season. And I was looking forward to having a chat with you. I was so excited to see that because, I did know that you were a Devils fan. So I was, it was cool to see that a longtime Devils fan is going to be calling the shots, during the games this year. What I wanted to say before I forget is you became a Devils fan in 1988, correct?
Yeah, pretty well. My first game was in '87, but that's when the real love clicked in. That run in '88 to the conference final against Boston, and I got to go to all the home games in those three series. So, yeah, that's when it really clicked for me. Yeah.
Yeah, we have something. I guess. All right, I was a little off because I thought I thought it was '88 when it was your first game. My first game was April 6th, 1988, at the Nassau Coliseum, and it was Game 1 of the playoffs that year. Right, a week after John McClain's big goal.
Yeah.
And that was my first ever game. Pat LaFontaine won the game in overtime. And I became a Devils fan that night though because I had seats right by the ice and I saw those red jerseys. I loved them, and that's how I became a Devils fan. So we were very close in fandom time.
That's
Mr.
it's
Mike
funny
here
because we do have that in common in the sense that my first game was February 22nd, 1987, so it was the season before, but it was at home, but it was also against the Islanders, and it was a 6-0 loss, and they played terrible, and the puck went off of Claude Loisel's head into the net. It was pretty embarrassing, but still, I just fell in love with the whole vibe of the team. And then the very next year, it comes together, and they're playing well, and the McClain goal against the Blackhawks, and then that whole run was just, Sean Burke getting called up after the Olympics. There was just so much that happened that season that made it just so much fun, and that ushered me into the fandom.
So if you were there in '87, well, I don't know if he might have played that game. Was Kirk McLean in that? Is that possible? He played nine games.
I think he was already gone at that point. I'm trying to remember who the goaltender would have been because that was, Chevrier came way back. I think Bob Solvay was the backup. I remember in '88 to Burke, but I don't remember who was in goal. That's a great thing about Hockey Reference. I could probably quickly look it up and see who was in goal for that game. But no, they weren't a very good team. And then, but that was the early stages of Lou, and then it all kind of clicked after that.
Yeah, like once Lou came in, it seemed like everything really just came together. I saw that you mentioned something on something I watched where you had a bunch of media guides. I love those media guides. Those were the best. I wish they still made those because every season you would get every little detail about everything, from year one until the last season. Those were kind of my favorite things to buy. I wish they I wish they would give out center ice, programs too.
I know those. That was a lot of fun having those, and in the story I probably told because I told a lot of different stories since getting this job was being at Sports Phone and flipping through one of those old media guides and then seeing a picture of me and my girlfriend in the stands behind a photo of Patrick Sundstrom. And I've been looking for that ever since, and I haven't been able to track it down or find it. I know I have it someplace, but I wasn't able to find it. But I hope I can run into that or somebody out there runs into it for me. I'd love to be able to see that again.
Yeah, that's so cool when you get to be. I'm in a one photo I saw when Grant Marshall won that triple overtime game. I was behind the net. Me and my brother were behind the net, and we ran down the staircase. And I'm in one photo that I've seen from that. You can see in the video slightly, but there's one photo where me and my brother are on the steps after that goal.
Oh,
That
I
was a
just
long
I just looked it up, by the way. I had it wrong. February 22nd, 1987. The final score was 7-0, not 6-0.
Ooh,
It was Billy Smith against was Elaine Chevrier took the loss. Craig Billington came in relief.
love Craig Billington.
Um, and it was pretty fair. Chevrier gave up 4 goals, and Billington ended up giving up 3. So it was a rout for sure. But those were the 2 goaltenders.
You know what? I have a long history with that Islanders team. I played for the Nassau County. I'm a Long Island guy. You're a Jersey guy, right? I played for the Nassau County Lions with Eric Nystrom, so I became very close with the Nystrom family and ended up hanging out with all those Islander guys when they would come for barbecues and parties over the summers. You know, I have a lot of stories I can't really talk about here because they're pretty private, but, you know, JP Parisi brought Zach Parisi. I played street hockey with him once, in the early 90s or mid 90s,
Wow, that's cool.
not knowing he'd be a Devil at that time. But since we're talking about goalies, I have something I really wanted to ask you. The Ring of Honor thing. I saw you've mentioned you've talked to a few people about the Ring of Honor recently. I think.
Yes.
I have a different take on who might be. I've guessed all three, not except for McMullen. I've guessed the other ones beforehand. I've guessed them. My guess this year is Larry Robinson. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense because of not just the Cup in 2000, but him being an assistant coach. And obviously the Devils are always known for their defense, and he was a former defenseman. And then him coming back even later on when things started to kind of go south on the Devils after the Cup run. So, yeah, I would have like zero problem with that. It wasn't a ton of time, didn't play for the team. But one of the 3 coaches that won a Stanley Cup, and he was a major part of their run. I would have no problem with that at all.
Yeah, when I spoke to Dano, I call him Dano like he's my friend. When I spoke to Mr. Devil Ken Daneyko, he thought that was actually one of the front runners in his mind. But I also have a long shot one, and I want to know what you think about this one. A lot of people said no, well, it would never happen, this or that. But there's a guy who was with the Devils organization for so long, no matter whether it be coaching or playing, and his name is Chris Terreri. The guy was with the Devils organization for 19 years as a coach, this or that, and I really think he deserves some recognition. Maybe not the Ring of Honor, but some sort of like Chris Terreri night or something like that for Chris Terreri. He really deserves it. He's been with the organization for so long.
You get into those situations where you don't want to overdo it because you want to try to make it special. And it's so difficult for us to look at it because we can list everybody, and because we're such fans of the team, maybe we sometimes overemphasize how much they meant because we're so close to it. But at the same time, maybe that's who it's for, right? That the fans, I always felt like retired numbers or Ring of Honor are for the fans. If the fans think that they deserve it, then do it. You almost don't want an outside perspective because they're not close enough to it. But when I think of Chris Terreri, I think about that run in '94.
Exactly.
And when he played those games at the old Boston Garden against the Bruins, because Lou had the hunch that, hey, he always excelled there when he played for Providence, and maybe he could help out for a young Marty Brodeur that might not have been ready to win those games, and they probably don't win that series if Terreri doesn't, get those wins on the road in that series. So, yeah, he was, and as you said, he's a goaltending coach, being a part of the organization for a long time. Because you can look at the back of like Sergei Breland's hockey card and say, is he deserving of such an honor? But he's one of the core players that were a part of all 3 championships, and only Stevens, Niedermayer, Brodeur, and Daneyko can say that. So there's something special about he's one of the kind of not forgotten by us, but not somebody that's going to jump to mind outside the organization. But him being a part of all those cups, he's deserving of it. So, yeah, I can kind of see Chris Terreri in the same way.
Yeah, Devils fans regarding Sergey Brylin, who, you know, whenever I would go to the Nassau Coliseum or MSG, me and my brother would have a chant, and I would say Sergey, and he would say Brylin. So we would do that and just taunt, you know, the MSG fans. And the Nassau Coliseum was a great place to go, though it really was. But regarding goalies, Chico Resch, you said Chico Resch might be a good shot for that.
Well, I remember going to a fan club dinner or some kind of function where Lou spoke. This is years ago. And Lou had mentioned about how he was trying to get a possibility of Chico Resch being honored because he was their first star. When they came to New Jersey, they didn't really have any star players, and Chico Resch was a star. He was a cup winner with the Islanders. He had name recognition in the area, and as the Devils were trying to build a fan base, and they weren't very good, that Chico Resch was a draw. And now what he's meant to the organization, not only working with Doc on television, but now working with Matty on radio, and he's an ambassador for the team. Like, why not? You know, honestly, like, what would it hurt? And so that kind of planted a seed in my head. And this was, you know, years ago. And with Lou gone, and it's a different vibe as far as the appreciation for him as a player. But now just being a part of the broadcast booth, and here's a guy that played for the Islanders, and he played for the Flyers, and
a lot local teams,
local teams, and you know, and he's waving the flag for the Devils, like he's a Devil, right? This is how he's decided to spend the rest of his life in this area, waving the flag for the Devils. I think that kind of means something. So maybe not a retired number, but now that you have the Ring of Honor, like, why not make him a part of it? Because I think even though there was a lot of losing back in the day, it's where it all started. You know, and this team comes over here and they built a fan base, and to a lot of people, those are really important times. That's when they fell in love with the team. And so there's nothing wrong with honoring the players from back in the day. I remember when the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup the first time in 2010, they honored Joel Quenneville on the NHL Network by playing a Devil Maple Leaf Hockey Night in Canada game from like the 70s. From the first year of the New Jersey Devils, because Quenneville was a Devil.
Yep.
And I got the biggest kick out of seeing those old Christmas tree jerseys and seeing the first Devil team play at Maple Leaf Gardens on Hockey Night in Canada. And so there's still memories. There's still things that people can appreciate, even though they didn't result in cups or wins, that you want to be able to honor that time with the Devils as well.
Yeah, Chris here says make a microphone banner to hang up on, you know, with the rest of the banners, and put Doc and Chico's name in it. That's not a bad idea.
You know, the only thing though, JJ, is that for me, if I'm going to put an analyst's name next to Doc, it would be Peter.
I lost your audio a little bit there.
Oh, sorry about that.
You sound better now.
If I was going to put a name next to Doc Emmerich, the name that I would put an analyst wise would be Peter McNabb.
Peter McNabb, yeah. Yeah.
Because that, you know, no offense to Chico, no offense to anybody else. It's just that combination is the one that resonates with me. That was, of course, the 94-95 season when they won their first Stanley Cup. That was that was the team. And even though they didn't call the Stanley Cup because it was on Fox, you know, they called all those games leading up to the Stanley Cup final. So that's the guy that I would think of. But honoring Chico, whatever, mustache, microphone, something to acknowledge the great Chico Resch. It's one of the really cool things for me, quite honestly, there's so many cool things about getting this job, is that to kind of hang around on the road with Chico. He's always been nice to me. He would always, even before I got the Ranger job, whenever I was doing shows on ESPN or FAN or the NHL Network or wherever I would do something, Chico would always come on, and it was always good to talk Devils hockey with Chico. And he'd always come into the booth at the Garden, or because we would be together at the Rock if they were downstairs. But if the Devil Ranger came at the Garden, he'd always pop his head in, say hello. I can't wait to kind of rekindle the relationship with them.
I'm losing your audio again.
Okay, I thought we had it here. Oh,
I think if it falls down, I lose you if it falls down.
Okay, well, I'm going to hold it. That's right. Okay, we got it.
Shit. I got most of what you were saying though.
Good.
What I wanted to show you, I pulled up here is this is the I'm gonna make myself big here. This is the 82-83 Devils team photo. Obviously,
Okay.
you can see Chico there on the bottom, and right in the middle is Joel Quenneville.
There he is.
There he is with the big mustache. I also have the 1985 team photo here. I don't know if I'm getting it on screen there, but Chico's also right there in that one too. So Chico, from my experience with Chico, the nicest guy in the world. He'll do anything for anyone. He's great with the fans. What he did for me is specifically, I'll show you a little. These two ticket stubs I have right here are signed by Doc and Chico. And what they did these two nights, this is February 6th, 2004 against Vancouver, January 13th, 2004 against Ottawa. Both of those nights, they gave me their game notes in their folder, a white Devils folder with their actual handwritten and their printed game notes, signed it for me. I have them in a bin in the back. I don't have that available to show here, but when I do get it out, I can't wait to show people those things. But yeah, Doc and Chico for Devils fans, like you said, is a huge, Doc and Chico. But people don't. A lot of, especially newer fans, don't remember McNabb. They don't remember even Gary Thorne. A lot of, they know Steve Cangelosi, one of my favorites also.
Oh yeah.
Cangelosi, we may have this thing because he goes Scar, like he's saying the word Scar.
Yes.
And I just love that. I love that. I'm actually gonna play a little audio clip of one of your Rangers calls. Do you mind?
Go ahead, sure.
All right, let's see if I got the volume up on this. Oh, that's my background music.
Finds Trocheck. Back out to Barkley. Goudreau, the shot! And score! Barkley Goudreau in overtime! We are tied at 1! It's now a best of 5 as the Rangers win in overtime, 2-1!
That's Dave Maloney in the background showing how much. And that's why, listen, the reason why Devil fans love Chico is the same reason why Ranger fans love Dave Maloney. He's a former player that wears his heart on his sleeve. So I love that call because of the fact that you got the best of Dave screaming in the background. So that was the Barkley Goudreau overtime goal in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Final a couple of years ago that tied the series at 1. And they went on to win in overtime in Game 3 and then ended up losing the series. But looking forward to having those calls on the Devils side for sure.
Oh yeah, and you know what? With players like Jesper Bratt, who's my favorite player, the things that you're going to be able to call on the ice are the plays that are going to come out this season are going to be excellent. Jack Hughes, obviously Nico, but you got Paul Cotter, who I'm representing back here right now.
You see that?
Nason, those kinds of guys, and also Angus Crookshank, who was brought in from Ottawa, who's got a 2-way deal. If there's any injury, I have a good feeling that guy is gonna make a mark. I did an interview with him, and he's really, really pumped to be in the Devils organization. So looking forward to seeing him because the second year of his contract is a 1-way with New Jersey. So next season he's got a New Jersey contract.
There'll be that opportunity. But you mentioned injuries, and that's the kind of scary thing about this team is that I think their season got certainly derailed by what happened with the injuries and losing Jack. If they could stay healthy, there's really no reason why this team can't compete to win this division. And I've been asked, what am I looking forward to? One of the things I'm really looking forward to, and I think it's going to happen health-wise if he stays healthy, is that Jack becoming the first 50-goal scorer in franchise history and the first 100-point scorer in franchise history. And hopefully I'll get a chance to be able to do that because with all the great seasons and all the great players, they have not been able to achieve that. And then the best forwards that they've had have never been able to reach that, at least as Devils. And I guess because his number hangs in the Raptors, Patrick Elias is considered their greatest forward. But I think everybody that's watched Jack over the last few years knows that he's inevitably going to become that. Right. So to get those stats, to get maybe the chance to call that, he would have done it a couple of years ago had he not got hurt. It was 99 points in 78 games.
Yep. I was at that game. That was Luke's first game when he hit 90.
Right.
I believe when he hit 99.
So I think that's inevitable. But the 50, that would be cool. And I remember coming out of the lockout, Scotty Gomez scored 33, and I thought maybe he could end up being the guy. Maybe
Giannis holds the record, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was a monster season that he had. And they had players that weren't on great teams. A young Pat Verbeek.
Right.
A young John McClain, but they just didn't have the talent around to really accentuate their ability to score.
Pat Verbeek easily could have put up 50 if he had the guys around him a few years later if he was on the team.
Without question, no doubt about that. So I think, and Nico could do it too. I mean, I thought he got off to such a great start last year. I thought maybe Nico had a chance to do it. So I think there's a couple of opportunities for all that to happen. And as far as 100 points, there's plenty of opportunities for people outside of Jack to do that too.
Jesper Bratt, I thought, could have hit 100 points this season. Every season he's gotten better. He's gone from 73 to 88. Now, hopefully next season, 108. That's what I'm going for, because he's still below his prime age, whatever age they say, prime 27, 28.
Right.
He's about at that prime time, so... and he doesn't get injured very often. If he gets hurt, he's out for a game or two. He has no long-term injuries for Jesper Bratt. He kind of holds up. That's why he's become my favorite. Also, his name is just catchy and cool, just from the start. And he's a 6th-round pick. Everyone overlooked the guy. And, you got to be proud of him. Just a guy who kind of probably didn't expect to make the NHL. And then, bam, he's a star, an all-star, too.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes sports fun, is that when you least expect it, somebody, comes up. There's so many lists of guys that didn't live up to expectations. To have guys that exceed expectations makes it a lot of fun. So, calling Devil games from afar over the last few years, there's just guys that just pop off the ice, and Nico and Bratt and Hughes are guys that they just jump right off the page to you, and they're fun to call because they're just exciting players. So I'm looking forward to do it instead of just the 3 or 4 times when they would pop up. That now to be able to do it all the time is going to be great.
Yeah, and I'm so excited for you, Don. On opening day, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on my end, but either way, I'm gonna let you know. I work for a company that works with the NHL, and I'm gonna be during the pre-game stuff outside. I have a booth that's gonna be set up for my company. People, I can't say it, but people know what company it is.
Okay.
And I'm gonna what I'm gonna be doing is like some raffle stuff and all that. I actually forgot the point of what I was getting at. I'm gonna be coming up to talk to Dano because he's gonna sign a couple of things for me. Because I found some of these funny cards of John LeClair, and Daneyko is defending him in the card, so it actually looks like a Ken Daneyko card, but it's a LeClair. So I said, hey, it would be funny if, and I have 2 of them. I said, hey, Dano, could you sign both of them? And one for me, and then one I'm going to do as a giveaway for the fans.
Okay.
And so I'm going to be coming over to for that. So hopefully you'll be over there, and I could, shake your hand and say what's up,
sure,
maybe
absolutely.
take a photo. It's so cool to have a Devils fan, an old school Devils fan, longtime Devils fan working for the Devils. Obviously Dano's a longtime Devils fan because he was a longtime Devil, and
right.
And we've had so many great people. The Devils fans have been so lucky to have so many great people behind the microphone. But let me ask you a question. But prior to 1987, you didn't even like hockey?
Well, my dad was not a hockey fan, so I got everything from my dad. I became a Giant fan because of my dad. I became a Met fan because of my dad, and I remember watching the '79 Stanley Cup Final with him, Rangers and Canadiens, because it was a local team in the Stanley Cup Final. Watching it with him, watching USA hockey win against Russia and Finland in 1980. But he didn't understand it. He wasn't a fan. He didn't have a favorite team. If he had a team, I guess it was the Rangers because they were local. And I remember always asking my dad, I want to go to the Garden. I want to get into hockey. And again, this is back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, where, not all the games were on television. Information wasn't readily available the way it was for the other sports. So you needed a conduit. You needed somebody to get you into it. And I remember my dad saying, well, when there's a team coming to New Jersey, maybe we'll go to a game, or maybe you'll get to go to a game when they're close. And I became friends with John Stark, one of my best friends, and he was a Devil fan from the very beginning. And that's when I started to go to games with him. And that first game in early 87 was the first game that I had gone to. But we had watched games before that, and he was kind of getting me into it. I just needed someone to explain it. Because I played football, I played baseball, I played basketball. Hockey was kind of foreign to me, just I had never played it, and I didn't have anybody in my family that was into it until finally I had that conduit, and then I just absolutely fell in love with it. So I guess I was considered, if you would ask me in 1980, who's your favorite hockey team, I guess I would have said the Rangers, but it wasn't like I was diehard or watching all the time. And then finally catching on with the Devils and having that person introduce me, that's when the love really came. So well, how old was I? I guess I was 19 years old. So a little older, but it took
But it
that
makes
long.
sense because hockey is like basically the fourth sport of the major sports, so everything else was being pushed. Not much hockey at that time.
Yeah, there's just, again, it was just, there wasn't, not every game. That Stanley Cup final in 79, Rangers Canadiens, was on MSG, but around the country it was on pay-per-view.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
so this is before, because I missed the whole national television on CBS and all that back in the early 70s. So when you have the other sports so available to you, it was and just in a different world for anybody watching or listening younger. A lot of this was like pre-cable, pre-ESPN, so there wasn't really a way to get a lot of information. So it was difficult until I finally had that hockey fan that showed me the way.
That's a great story because a lot of people said he must have been a Rangers fan before, or he's a Rangers fan because he called for the. No, people have to get a job, and they take the jobs that they get, right? I'm not. If someone said, "Hey, do you want to do this for the Rangers?" Absolutely, sure, of course. You're paying me, and I'm going to do the best I can.
Well, I worked to get this opportunity to be able to call games. Always a dream to do play-by-play, and you take the jobs where you can get them. And
Right.
and I just look at it all happens for a reason, right? I wasn't going to get this job if I hadn't built up the resume that the Rangers opportunity presented to me. So, and you want the team that you're working for to do well. So, and I want the Devils to do well. It coincides with a fandom and a knowledge of the history of the team, because I was such a diehard fan growing up. But when you make a decision to do this for a living and do play-by-play, hey, I did the Jets pre and post for 16 years. I'm a Giant fan, but I wasn't going to pass up an opportunity to work for an NFL team. So it's not apples to apples, JJ, but it is. What if I was a player like Dave Maloney, who I work with, grew up a Maple Leafs fan? That obviously went away in 1974 when he was drafted by the Rangers, and
I didn't know that. Yeah,
and he becomes a diehard Ranger fan because he played for the Rangers, and he gave his blood and soul to that jersey, just as he would if he was drafted by the Boston Bruins or the Vancouver Canucks, right? So that's it's the choice. The choices you make in life. So I do have a lot of people to push back on that, but
yeah, but there's
whatever.
You got to do what you got to do to support your family, whatever it is, and you got to play your part. That's basically it. Let's go. Let me go to some questions some of the fans have here.
Yes.
Mike says, "What's Don's take on the 19-day Olympic break in February? What do you think about that?"
Well, I guess I never liked it because it really depends on where the Olympics are. Like when the Olympics were in Salt Lake and Vancouver, it really helped the National Hockey League because it was the games were in prime time and they were easy. when they went to Nagano in '98, you're watching the games at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't listen. I'll probably appreciate the break as an announcer to be able to get some time in February to maybe to recharge the battery. But from a fan standpoint, I never liked it. The Olympic hockey is amazing. Don't get me wrong,
Of course.
but to be away from the NHL, I guess it'll be better if Canada and the United States make a run. Then it'll feel more like it's actual NHL hockey. But right in the middle of the season, especially as it's starting to get closer to the trade deadline and deeper into the year, to take that 3-week break, I was just never a fan of it.
And my take on it is if, and I'll just use the Devils as the example. If the Devils happen to be on a hot streak at that moment, and then they get 3 weeks off, they come back, and then they lose 5 in a row. Like that happens all the time with these kinds of breaks, and it takes the momentum away from a team, but it also could take a team that's been on, losing a lot of games and give them some time, and then they come back and make a playoff push. So it is positive in that little tiny way, So let's go to another question from Chris here. How do you keep yourself mentally engaged when you work for the Jets, Rangers, and next to Yankees guy Michael K, all the teams you aren't a fan of? Okay,
Well,
you kind of went through that.
Yeah, but again, it's sports, right? So listen, it is crazy as a Met fan to work 22 years with a Yankee announcer and to do the Jets and the Rangers. But like I said, it was to be able to work for an NFL team like the Jets and to be at these games, going to the championship game in '09 in Indianapolis and Pittsburgh in 2010 and calling a Stanley Cup final game in 2014 for the Rangers. It's to be, if you're a sports fan, to be that close to something, it was not difficult to be engaged, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not, especially in big games like that?
Yeah, sure.
Adam G6, you have 2 questions for Don. Send them out over here. Chris wants to know, is it true? This is a great one. Is it true that you saw Claude Lemieux in his birthday suit post-game when you were working earlier in your career?
Yeah, it did end up, I think, in the Sports Phone book that I was working at Sports Phone, and the guy that trained me to cover games during that 92-93 season, I think it was early 92, was Steve Goldstein, who right now is the TV voice of the Florida Panthers. And we both worked at Sports Phone. He's a Brooklyn guy. And we went to the Meadowlands. He was showing me around. And Claude Lemieux had a big game. And if you remember I don't know if you ever saw the dressing room at the Meadowlands, there's the dressing room. And then there was another room where they had like couches and a coffee table and then the showers. So the players would kind of chill out in that room before they would come out to their
it was like the
dress.
green room.
Yeah, it was kind of it was a little area before, like a buffer between the shower and when they would come out. And we were all huddled around that door waiting for Claude to come out because he was the player of the game. We wanted to get the sound, and he wasn't coming out. And Steve and I had nowhere to go, and we weren't on deadline like a lot of the newspapers guys were. So we were the only 2 left. And Claude comes out of the shower and he sees us, and I think Steve might have said, "You got a minute?" And he waves us in to that room. And we're like, okay. And the price we had to pay for that interview is he just kind of laid down on the couch completely naked, and we had to sit on that coffee table and ask him questions. And that's what we did. We had to get the sound. So he was playing a game with us. How bad did we want the sound? And I guess we needed it, and it was okay. So that's what we went through. It was awkward, but it made for a great story 30 years later.
That's the kind of guy.
No, he was a bust. He liked to break chops, no question.
Yeah, I heard Sergei Breland was terrified of him in his rookie season, but Claude Lemieux was doing the right thing. He was really working Sergei to make sure, but the stories that I heard, I think it was in one of Chico's books that I read a good story about how Breland would sometimes try and hide from Claude Lemieux when he came into the arena. He couldn't because Claude would be looking for him right away.
Yeah.
But you know what? They won the cup and they did their thing. Talking about cups, a couple, we have those few players who won all 3 cups for the Devils, but a lot of people don't remember one player that won 2 cups. And it's not Bobby Holik, it's Tommy Albaline. People forget he won 2 cups with the Devils also, and you got to give him some credit. because he was a great defenseman.
He
You know,
was.
not a Hall of Fame kind of
No,
guy,
but
but
no, good steady defenseman that was, really important to the team. And
very
unfortunately, they were always stacked with guys, right? Like
way
another
too
guy
much.
that maybe sometimes gets lost, who I thought was fabulous, was Brian Rafalski. So,
Mm,
you got Rafalski, you got Stevens, you got Niedermeyer. I mean, they had so many great defensemen. You go back to the '95 championship and how Chambers was able to chip in. Like
oh
they've
man,
always had deep, so it's easy to kind of forget certain guys. Even going back to the '88 run with guys like Willanen.
Wolanin, yeah.
They had a lot of really good, solid defense. It's kind of what they're known for, right? The goaltending and defense. And so it's easy when you played the blue line, or go back to Joe Sorella and obviously Bruce Driver. There's so many names out there, and of course the great Ken Daneyko, that you can just that it's sometimes there's a few guys that slip through the cracks that really shouldn't.
Right. Well, Kenny Daneyko is a legend in our eyes, of course.
Yeah.
One of my favorite players in those early days when I was a kid was Peter Stastny. Also, um, he
Oh,
was
when they got him, I remember just the excitement, watching him with the Stasny brothers in Quebec, and then that was big. Lou sometimes would, get, not wanting to acquire stars and not wanting to sign big name free agents. That just wasn't Lamarillo's way of doing business. But you think of some of the names he traded for, whether it was Stasny, Anderchuk, Gilmore,
Mogilny.
McGillney. There were some big names that came over because when he sensed that there was a chance to win the cup, Lou would do whatever he had to try to get the team over the top.
Right.
So yeah, but Peter Stastny goes. He was obviously in the back nine when he came here, but he still was a really good player.
Yeah, and I heard that you said because you just mentioned two names that reminded me of this. You said that before he came to the Devils, which was very short, that Doug Gilmour was your favorite player outside of the Devils or in general, right?
Well, listen, I love the way he played, and
Great
I,
player.
I always had an affection because one of the greatest games I ever saw was Game 7, first round, Flames Canucks.
Ooh,
Canucks took the Flames to 7 games, and that Canuck team in '89, that Flame team in '89 won the
the
Stanley
Flames.
Cup,
Yep.
loaded with players, and Gilmore, and then you had a young Flurry
Newendike.
and Newendike and McGinnis, and, Vernon in
Oh
goal
yeah,
and Lanny
McGinnis was on
McDonald.
the line.
It was just I really enjoyed that team. I really loved the way they played, and that was an amazing game.
So
And
many
went to
stars.
overtime. Joel Otto scored the game-winning goal, went off a skate. So if they had the kicking motion, maybe they don't win the cup. But anyway, and then going to Calgary and calling a game at the Saddle Dome, and right near the booth where Doc and JD called the game for Sports Channel back in '89. But I always had those Flame teams, and I always loved Doug Gilmour. And then early fantasy hockey, I had Gilmore and Anderchuk that were on that '93 Maple Leaf team that like scored power play goals like you wouldn't believe, and I was able to win a lot of money playing fantasy football, fantasy hockey, having those guys on the team. So when they acquired him, it was I was, and then Anderchuk too.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. Again, getting them later in their careers, and obviously '97 didn't go very well, losing to the Rangers in the second round. And I
Right.
thought the turning point of that series, I don't know if you remember, because the Devils beat him up pretty good in game 1.
Oh
And
yeah.
then in game 2, Messier cross-checked Gilmore in the
Gilmore
face.
and yep.
And I felt like that changed the momentum of the series. It really did. That just like Messier really just kind of knocked Gilmore off there for a second. And there was a bunch of goals disallowed because of the stupid toe in the crease garbage that drove me crazy.
Right. I
But I
hate
remember
that.
that being, Doug Gilmore was one of my favorite players. And I'm glad that he's gotten his due being in the Hall of Fame and all that. But and Dave Anderchuk too. Also, I loved him, and I got to be at Game 7 in '04 in Tampa when they beat the Flames to win the Cup, and Anderchuk, of course, finally getting that championship. I thought was pretty
It was
amazing to be
great.
there for that.
Yeah, Dave Andrewchuk. Before I even get to what because you said Gilmore, mine was Mogilny. Mogilny from I have a poster in this room from 1992, his Buffalo days. Mogilny was my favorite player, and when my brother came to me and said, "Hey, the Devils signed Mogilny," or traded for Mogilny. I think they traded Peterson or whoever it was to Vancouver. Um, I didn't believe him. I said because I was such a Mogilny fan, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, and you know he was a big part of winning that Stanley Cup, and also these two sticks. I don't want to touch them because it'll knock everything down. I have two of Mogilny's game-used sticks right back here from the 2001 finals.
Wow.
Yeah, which, you know, those are like my prized possessions, those sticks right there. I have a lot of Mogilny stuff. I love Mogilny. But I also, Dave Andreychuk is, oddly enough, I'm a big card collector. So in 1997, Upper Deck put out a series where all the photos of their cards were players like either in a commercial break, like hanging out at the bench, you know, just like leaning on at the bench. And the Dave Andreychuk card was always sitting right in front of me, and for some reason it's not here right now. I just wanted to pull it out of nowhere like a magician, but it's not here randomly all of a sudden. I always have this Dave Andreychuk card sitting right here. Anyway, we got Adam's questions here. Let's go to Adam.
Okay.
Hi guys, 2 questions for Don. 1, what are you most looking forward to this upcoming season or in general? And does DHR have any plans to do a show from The Rock? If so, he'll definitely try to make it.
Like I said earlier, I think the anticipation of maybe scoring calling a 50-goal season or a 100-point season for a Devil, but just the overall, like I feel like I'm catching them at the perfect time. I really feel like they're moving in the right direction. And a lot of special things could happen. So the answer, it's going to sound lame, but everything. I'm just looking forward to
There's
everything.
so much this year.
You know, the travel, the season, to work with the people that I'm going to be working with. And, you know, it's got to talk to Bryce Salvador the other day, and I was always a big fan of his play. So the answer is everything. And as far as us going to the Rock, I mean, I would think come playoff time, big series, I think that's Allen's all up for it. Of course, he's a partner of mine over at MSG, and Peter Rosenberg is an event guy, so if there's something big going on, I think there's an excellent chance that we'll be going. So hopefully I'll see you there.
That'd be great. Are you guys? I think I asked Daneyko this question, but I don't think he answered the question. Are you guys doing the away games for the preseason? Like, are you going to be at UBS or MSG?
No,
for the
right now,
games?
I'm just down for the 2 at the Rock, the 21st and the 23rd. The Rangers and the Islander games.
Right? Yeah. All right, I'll be at that Islanders.
So those are the 2 that I'm down for. I think they'll might be the only 2 because there's a couple of them that are split squad. I know the Ottawa's a split squad game, so I think it's just those 2 for now that we're going to be doing. So there may be other games that are on MSG, like when they play at the Garden, and the Rangers will do that one, or at UBS the Islanders will do it. But we'll do the Rangers and Islanders because the games will be at the Rock. So I think MSG will have them, but the local announcers will probably just be for the games that are in the respective buildings.
All right, fair enough. Now, that reminds me. Can you believe that we don't play the Rangers until March?
Yeah, 3 times in March, and you know that national television is going to take a couple of them anyway. So, Ray Santiago, my radio producer for the Rangers, when the schedule came out, he's like, "I'll see you in March." And I look at this guy like, yeah, it's so strange, and only 3 times too.
Yeah,
and that's obviously going to change next year when they go to 84 games. But yeah, just kind of odd that it's just the 3 games and all of them in March.
You would think that if of all the teams in the league for the Devils, that they would give the Devils 4 or 5 games against the Rangers. You know?
Oh well, I don't because of the additions of Vegas and Seattle, they had to take games away. Why they're taking games away from the division, I don't know.
That's what
you should not lessen Battle of Alberta games. You should not lessen Ducks Kings games or Rangers Devils games or Islanders. You know,
any of those good rivalries. Yeah. Like
no offense to Columbus, but you know if you want to take a Devil Columbus game, I don't think people are going to cry. Take a Ranger game away. That just seems silly.
Right, and especially having the fans and the team themselves wait all that time to play that rival. It's like they don't get a taste of them early. Like they always play the Islanders in October and early December. It's like schedules. Usually the Islanders games are in around the same time every year, and this time it's just crazy. And I was like, Don's first season with the Devils, he doesn't get he might not even now. You might not even get to call that game live. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not, because again, but we'll see. I'm looking forward. I think I'll get it, but I don't know whether it'll be at the Garden. I'm sure national TV will take it. We should get the national schedule soon, but even if they're not nationally televised in the beginning of the season, ESPN or TNT can take them in March, late in the season, especially after the Olympics. So I'll have to wait and see.
Now, Chris wants to know here: do you get to call the game up in Quebec City this year?
I don't. I haven't seen again what's going to be national, whatever. I've never been up there. I'm looking forward to it. I love Montreal, so I can imagine going up to Quebec City would be amazing too. So all that's going to get worked out once we get the schedule all finalized.
Yeah, you kind of answered that question already, but I wanted to like make sure Chris's question got up on the screen.
But I got my show to do, buddy. So thank you for this. This was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to just say thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. Thank you for answering the questions of some of the fans that came in here. I really appreciate it, Don, and good luck this season. I'll probably meet you on opening day or one of those.
I will come by
days.
there for that Panther game for sure, the opening night. So looking forward to it, and always come by and say hello. You know where I'm going to be.
All right, Don. Well,
Thanks
again, man, and let's go Devils.
My pleasure, man. Take care. Good job.
All right, bye-bye, man. And that was Don LaGreca. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.